know where David's at. I was, we're alive.
We just have discussion. It would just be discussion.
Right. Right. And so I don't want to waste everybody's time, and I apologize. I don't know what's going on, but we just won't be able to vote on anything. Okay? Good morning. I am the chair, and I'm the only one here today, but that's okay. Michelle, you're welcome to come and sit up here with me if you would like to. You can. I'm just going to put you in as a proxy. Because I'm the chair and I can do that. Okay, good morning and welcome to the October 15th, 2024 Public Infrastructure. This meeting's called to order. We're going to skip the minutes and go to the action items. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. David can just pick up on the tape. I apologize to everybody. If we can get started. Okay, action item 3A.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just as a reminder, get everyone on the same page, the City Council approved a contract for preliminary design, including public engagement and coming up with a high-level cost estimate for the Hunton project. We have engaged our consultant. We're going to talk a little bit about the public engagement that we've done, as well as the concept plans, with the idea of getting the Public Infrastructure Committee up to speed in terms of what our recommendation is going to be to the governing body. And then in November, we will take this to the governing body to hopefully get their direction and guidance in terms of what they want the scope of this project to look like. Once that has been determined, then we will come back to the governing body with the design contract based on the guidance that they provide us. So Bartlett and West was selected as the consultant to provide the design services. And I will have Jeff Lawley provide an overview. He's prepared a PowerPoint presentation in terms of where we've been and what our options are and our recommendation.
Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Jeff Lawley with Bartlett West, the project manager for the Hunton Street project. We are here to talk about what we've been up to over the last 3 to 4 months. So currently what we've done is we've gone out there and we've had them core the existing roadway just to see what's going on beneath the pavement and understand, is there something going on beneath the pavement? Is it the pavement itself that's falling apart? And we have some pictures up here of some of the cores that we have taken. It's not all the pictures, but a pretty good representative of what's going on for that 2.25 miles. And just from the cores, you can tell that most of the pavement's not really falling apart. I think you guys have seen some other cores for some other projects where you can just tell that things were not going to hold together. But from these cores, it looks like things are pretty good. We've also done an existing utility review. We've looked at the city of Topeka utilities out there as much as we could to this point with sanitary and water and storm, just to see what all we have out there available to us. And we've also looked at third parties to see how much of a presence there are with fiber and Evergy and other third parties, just to see what's all going on in that corridor. And we've also done a traffic study. Our partners with WSP have also done a traffic study to kind of give an idea of what's all going on out there. We compared that with 12th Street. They've done a traffic study out there as well, a post-construction traffic study. And so we've got all that information to kind of help guide us on where we want to go in the future. So this is just some pictures of what actually looks like out there on the existing pavement conditions. And we wanted to show some pictures of this because we wanted to compare this to what we had with the cores. The cores are a great representative of what's going on out there, but you're only getting a 3-inch diameter section of the roadway. So this can look really well, but then this could actually look like what's the pavement's going on out there. So it's good to keep in mind that even though you have one sample to show that things are pretty good, things could also be going very wrong out there. And obviously this is cherry picking and just pictures of things that are going wrong, but there are a lot of pictures of spidering and pavement and things that are falling apart out there on the existing roadway.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, this is a presentation, but definitely if you have questions or comments, please feel free.
Did you take cores on all parts north to south of the road?
Like, not just going down the center or something? Yes, the different locations were all over the different parts of the roadway.
Okay.
Yep, that's a good question. just to make sure you're not hitting the same thing over and over again? That's a very good question. So for the City of Topeka utilities, we'll start with sanitary. Right now, they're finishing up the videoing of all their utilities through that area to get a better understanding of what they may need to do. The plan for sanitary is to handle anything that they need to do, any pipelining, anything like that to do before the project were to ever start. And from what they've been able to see, they don't think that it'll be very intensive of what they have to do, but we have a dollar amount in there just to have an understanding of what might happen with the sanitary utilities. And if there was anything that needed to be replaced as a part of the project, then they would be eligible for funding by the countywide sales tax funds that are used for the project. For water, that's a little bit more intensive. A lot of the utilities throughout there are old and undersized, and we don't have enough pressure for like fire lines and things like that through there. And it's very a suboptimal situation with the water. So we have a pretty wide spread there of 2.7 million to 6.3 million. And the 2.7 million was just the bare minimum of what we needed to do just to replace things and replace aging utilities. And the 6.3 million was to get it up to speed to where it needs to be. There's a 12-inch water line that needs to be installed along Huntoon, either for the entire length or for certain portions to kind of go along with what was done on 12th Street with that project to make sure that that whole corridor is properly fed for all the different properties and fire lines and things of that nature. And we don't really know how that would work, but it is also eligible for funding by the countywide sales tax funds, any of that water work that's going on there. For storm, there's about 6,000 linear feet of storm sewer out there. Over half of it would need to be replaced in order to get it up to the City of Topeka specifications. There's metal, there's clay, there's all kinds of undersized pipe and strange things going out there. So about 1.5 million would be estimated to replace all of that infrastructure just in kind, just to get it out and get it back into city specs with concrete pipe. And all of that estimation is in the overall roadway construction cost estimate. Is there any questions about that?
If it needs, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
If the, goes beyond, the 1.5, is that a minimum, a maximum?
That is more of a rough estimate of what we would need to do out there just to replace what's out there. If we did a full project and tore everything out and started brand new with a new design, it would probably be a little bit more, but it'd be in the same ballpark.
Okay, that's what I wanted to
Yeah.
know. Okay.
Yep. So the next slide was from the traffic study, and our partners with WSP were not able to be here today, but for this first slide, this is more about the crash incidents that are along the Huntoon project. The study covered 4.5 years, and from the slide you can tell that most of the incidents are vehicle-on-vehicle accidents. They have the post up there that 36% of drivers are driving above the posted speed limits. The intersections are kind of highlighted where we see most accidents through here at Gage and Oakley, Washburn and Lane. And Polk was a high incident area as well, which everybody thought was a little interesting. But one of the things they took from this study was they found that a lot of the accidents were from folks weaving. Since we have two driving lanes and folks want to make a left turn, they'll cut people off, or people will pull out onto Huntoon and they're not able to see people because of the two driving lanes, they might be covered up. So they found that a lot of those incidents were potentially caused by having two driving lanes out there and folks trying to do things maybe they're not supposed to do, maybe some higher speeds because those two driving lanes allow for high speeds and for racing. And then we included the picture of the unfortunate accident that happened on Huntoon in August, where somebody left the roadway and ended up in somebody's front door, and that included a fatality. So we thought that was unfortunate, but we wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of that and that it happened on Huntoon. So that goes along with the next part of the study, which was, do we really need two lanes? And if we were to build with just one driving lane, would that be sufficient? So on this slide, it might be a little bit hard to tell from those lines, but the purple line is the traffic that they have found out there for the last 4.5 years. That's the study, that's the numbers that they've looked at and the numbers they've counted out there over the last year. The blue line is what would happen if we had just one lane. What would the capacity be if we had just one lane? And it also shows that there would be potentially no stop signs at Oakley and McVicker and what that capacity would look like. And the blue line shows that if you just had one lane, it would still handle all the traffic that we've seen, the peak traffic, the most traffic we see out on Huntoon. And I think it's green, it's hard for me to see here, but the green line was showing what the capacity was for the existing 2 driving lanes. As you can see, the capacity of 2 lanes is significantly higher than both the 1 lane and what we see out there. So from the traffic study and from everything we saw, we were going to recommend only 1 through lane be built out on Hunton because that's really all we need out there. But then that goes on to like, okay, if we only need 1 driving lane, what else is out there? We can't build a roadway with 1 lane and curb because that just doesn't work. You know, if there's an accident or something to happen, you need some more room on the side for allow people by or allow emergency vehicles to get through. So we need to find out what else would that be. If we have 1 drive lane, what's going to be adjacent to that? So for our project public involvement to date, the very first thing we did is we had a post-construction meeting for 12th Street because we didn't want the Hunton meetings to turn into 12th Street meetings. So that was the first thing we did. And we had a pretty good showing of folks coming and saying positive things and concerns and things that they saw out on 12th Street. So it's a very beneficial meeting to have to let everybody, you know, have a voice about what happened with 12th Street. And it's probably something we should do on all construction projects when it's reasonable. So the next thing we had was a Hunton Street community open house. There's no presentation. We just had everybody from the community come to the Topeka Library and just share their thoughts. What would they like to see on Hunton? You know, what do they see in their area and what's important to them? And so we had a lot of folks share their thoughts both at the meeting and online. And we took a lot of that information and moved it forward with what we wanted to present. And we did that at the public meeting on September 9th. And we presented a lot of our findings from the open house and from the traffic study and everything you've seen up to this point. And we presented them with 3 options that we'd like them to vote on, a survey. The first option was just doing street maintenance on Hunton. That was it. You know, we're going to replace the utilities and whatever's left of the roadway, we would just mill and overlay. And that would be it. They wouldn't get anything like street lighting, no shared use path, no improvements to the alignments of the roadway, nothing. Just replacing the roadway. The second option was the single lane road, but then something to the side, whatever that would be. A bike lane, parking, both, something. Something would be over there. And we haven't defined what that would be, but it would be something of a complete street type element. And the third option was a 2-lane roadway, and it says complete street elements, but really the only thing we'd have room for is a shared use path. That's about it. We could do some other improvements, but if you have a 2-lane roadway, you don't have room out there for a bike lane and on-street parking. We just don't have the right-of-way or the room or the money, the budget to do all of those things. So we presented the public with those 3 options, and out of all the people that responded, both at the meeting and online, only 3% voted for option 1 of just doing street maintenance. And 77% of those that responded voted for the single lane road with some type of complete street elements. And at that meeting, we had everything available to them that could be an option, and we didn't narrow anything down. We just showed them, you know, what we could do out there. And then 20% responded with the 2-lane road with the shared use path. So 97% of people wanted something done out there and not street maintenance. So taking that, we move forward, but cover a slide about the street maintenance, and this is what we showed them, that you would get replacing existing utilities, install new utilities, which included that 12-inch water line. We would replace and repair whatever pavement was left that needed to be repaired and replaced. And for that 12-inch water line, you know, we're already taking out half the roadway, so there wasn't much roadway left to repair. And sidewalk infill, if there's any sidewalk out there that's not there today, we'd put that in. And then whatever is left with the roadway, we would mill and overlay it so it would have a new surface. And that would still be 3 years of construction. There's still a lot of construction for a street maintenance project. And the estimate for that was $7 to $9 million in today's dollars for construction. And of course, out of all that, you don't get any complete street elements, no shared use path, no bike lane, no traffic calming elements, nothing. We don't get street lighting, and excuse me, and you don't get any improvements to private drives. Like 29 out of 35 drives to the south for the first mile and a half, I think the drives are 16% or over. They're all pretty steep, and you know, we can't really help them in those matters with the street maintenance project, but with the full project, we could do some things that would help them, at least to their approaches to their drives, to make that a little bit easier for them. So for the full depth reconstruction recommendation that we had, again, the preferred option by 77% of the survey respondents was the 1 lane with complete street elements. With that project, you'd get a new roadway and storm sewer, and it would include a shared use path, sidewalks and ramps, bike lane and an on-street parking, street lighting and landscaping, new traffic signals, and driver and pedestrian safety improvements to all the intersections. So for that, in today's dollars, $13.3 million was the estimate for construction. So you compare that to the $7 to $9 million for street maintenance. And we projected it forward to 2027 because that's when construction would potentially begin. And that was $14.9 million. And then we compared that to what we have in the budget for this project for construction, which was 15.9. We just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that we were still in line with what was planned dollar-wise, even though the planning was done a few years ago. So still within the budget to do all the things that we would recommend for a full-depth reconstruction project. So a question was asked before, like, what does that look moving forward? If the decision was made to do a street maintenance and just repair stuff out there as it is today, or if we did a full project, what would that look like over the next 10, 20, 30 years? You know, maintaining those different projects. So we took the time to stretch that out over the next 40 years. And so for the first line was if we completely started new and did a whole new project, and what that dollar amount would be, the max amount that we have for our estimate, and that was just under 15 million. And you stretch that out with all the different maintenance you would do over the next 40 years, the total dollars would be about 21.3 million for that project. If we chose to do a street maintenance option and just repair what's out there, and then just repair the roadway for the next 40 years, not doing any improvements to the curb or the side roads or anything else, just the pavement, then at the end of that 40 years, we would end at 20.7 million. So $500,000 saved over 40 years, and we still don't have anything new or improved, no amenities, no street lighting, nothing out there. So we thought that would be something that would be worthwhile for folks to know, just wanting to know how that all would work out throughout the future. And this last slide was just kind of showing, if somebody had the question, how does this typical section fit? If we try and do everything, if we try and do a shared use path, a driving lane, a bike lane, and parking, it seems like a lot. Does that fit out there? So the slide we're showing is the area that has the most restrictive right-of-way, and just showing that it does fit through there without having to take any right-of-way or negatively affect any of the residents through here. For the most part, it fits within the existing corridor. Just the only places it does affect them is where there's no sidewalk today. We'd be putting in a sidewalk or a shared use path, and that does affect their private drives one way or the other. So that is what we wanted to show for that last slide. So a lot of information shared over the last 15 minutes. Does anybody have any questions or concerns or comments?
I have a few questions.
Yeah.
And your public meeting, did that include businesses in that area?
Yes.
It did? How many businesses showed up?
Yep, just from that meeting, and we had another meeting too for the businesses at Oakley and Hunton. We had a few folks show up for that as well. I think we've probably hit 5 or 6 maybe of those folks there.
So you had a separate meeting?
We did because we want to have we tried to just do one because we know that sometimes it's hard to get away from your business, especially when you're a small business owner, to go to a meeting that's scheduled during the times that you're busy. So we wanted to give them an opportunity to show up and share their concerns and any comments they may have. And so we had a few other people show up that were not able to make the meeting.
Okay, I want to go back, and this might not be for you. Do you have any questions for him?
I will, but go ahead
Okay.
with yours.
Okay. This might be a question for staff. I'm not sure. So if I was to say, let's prolong this another couple, 2 years, 3 years, like Braxton, we looked at some streets in my district, and you said they're at 30%. What percent is this street at?
Do you have the PCI?
I do have a PCI
on this?
bill.
We'll get that information from board to you on the PCI along Hunton.
Okay, because with our budget being tight next year in 26 and 27, I'm looking at everything, even projects that we've approved, that maybe we might have to put them on hold. We've done that before, and I'm glad you did the survey, because I've gotten a lot of calls of people saying they want it left alone. I've got business owners. When I go to the dentist, which I'll be going in 2 weeks, he's going to tell me leave my street alone. So I'm glad you did the survey, so at least I have something. Can you tell me how many people took the survey?
I think we had just under 60. both
That's not
online.
too bad.
in person. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Michelle?
Okay, first thing that came to mind, what are you doing with the alley entries? Are those
Typically-
getting replaced?
Typically, at a minimum, we repair them to the right-of-way. We replace them up to the right-of-way. With those things, it's tough to stop once you get past that because you end up replacing the whole thing. But at a minimum, we replace what's inside the right-of-way in the approaches.
Okay. I know that a lot of the sidewalks in there are, it's 50/50, non-existent or 4 or 5 foot.
Yeah.
How are we going to get in a 10-foot shared use path on the north side? There's some of those that eats up so much of their front yard. I can't see any reason. And most of this, there's parts that aren't, that are business, but like where I think it's the VFW that's there in Westboro, they don't have a sidewalk. That will lose them a lot of parking. So how are we going to deal with that? I mean, I don't want to stand there and tell them, sorry, we need to have a 10-foot shared use path, and you're going to lose a dozen parking stalls. And when
Right.
they have events, they're full.
Yeah, there would definitely be sensitivity about that. We don't just blow through saying you're going to get a shared use path no matter what. I mean, a good example is over in Westboro. They have those nice new signs that they built there. We're not going to take those things down just to build a shared use path. We'll find a way around those to preserve existing parking or signs or things like that. So definitely we're sensitive to that when trying to wind those things through. It's just a sidewalk. It doesn't have to be in a straight line. It's not a road. So we can do different things to get those things through there if possible. Shorten it down to 8 feet if we need to. So
I'm not a fan of the 10-foot or 8-foot. Okay. I believe we need to do all of the underground work, and I know there's a lot of it, the pavement's bad. So I'm somewhere in between. But one thing that's come up, and I've had several people bring it up, is if we put in those little islands like we have on 12th, there's people who can't navigate them.
right.
A big one is the fire department. They can't turn those corners when they need to, and that's an issue, but they're not the only ones. There's a lot of, UPS has problems, especially if you're right at that corner and you've got to go left, even though the bump's on your side, there's no room to navigate it. So are we looking at leaving those out, minimizing them if we do that? I mean, we've got to find a way to make
Right.
it easier for people to get in.
We've heard that comment a lot, not just from folks like that are driving larger vehicles, but just normal folks that run over them when they're trying to make right turns coming from the north. So we probably would not get rid of them, but we definitely are looking at minimizing them. And just so that there's a presence there, so folks don't feel like they can fly up and down the roadway in either lane, but still minimize the damage or inconvenience it causes folks that are trying to navigate through there. So we definitely have heard that and are looking at different options.
Because it also becomes a maintenance issue. If you've got a lot of people hitting them,
Yep.
you got to come back at some later date
Yep.
and spend more money to fix them, which to me, that's, if you can minimize it, that'll save us some money in the future.
I agree. Yep.
I've had people make comments to me, you want a bike lane, where are the bikers? We don't see them. So I'm 50-50 on that, and I did have a couple people from, I think it was College Hill, tell me they did not get invited to the first meeting, and I was on my way out of town when I found out when the next one was, so I'm hoping they made it to the September meeting, but they were really upset they didn't get invited or even notified about the first one. So we got to do a little bit better on that. That's probably it for right now. Is David?
Okay.
Oh, Marcus is here.
Thank you. Thank you. David, Councilman Banks, do you have any, I'm sorry, Councilman Banks, do you have any questions?
Mute.
While I'm waiting on him to answer me, I see that Councilman Miller has joined us. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. I don't necessarily have questions. A couple thoughts. especially about what Councilwoman Hofer just said. I'd like to know who those College Hill people are that said that they didn't know about the meeting. It's hard pressed for me to believe that they had no clue unless they were personally a door knocked to ask them if they want to go. There was many publications put out about this, so I find that hard to believe. But I will say that this Hunton project, from the people who live in this district that I get to represent, there are some that aren't in favor of it, but those ones that are few and far between. The majority of the people that I talk to are in favor of this project happening for a multitude of reasons. There's been a lot of work put into this, and the project itself is going to be beneficial for the thorough that it is. So I am hoping that this committee makes the right decision and approves this project. Thank you.
Okay.
What is the ask?
What is the ask? Let's see, the ask is,
My question, I guess,
we-
is asking, do you want us to give you direction now? Do you want the whole,
this is just for discussion, right?
Yeah, yes, ma'am, this is just for discussion. We plan in November, at the November 12th meeting, to make this presentation to the council and ask for direction from the council in terms of which way they want us to go, whether that's to do nothing, which is absolutely an option, whether to go with just a maintenance, a mill and overlay with minimal utility repair work, or to go with full depth reconstruction on a 1-lane or 2-lane. Those are all of the options that are out there.
Okay, thank you. David hasn't answered me, and I'll wait on him. If there's no other questions or comments, we will move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Action 3B.
oh, there's David.
Oh, David, did you have any questions?
Not a question, but just a comment on, I don't know why there's so much concern about bike trails in this city, and especially over there. I lived there for many years, and having been being a retired firefighter, I just don't see that construction being beneficial, but I don't live there, so just a comment. I don't see why we're so concerned about bike trails and all of that. We have way more things to be focused on than putting bike trails and changing that street over there. That's all, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Banks. Okay, 3B. Sylvia Davis.
Good morning. As you know, at the October 1st council meeting, we announced that we were pre-approved through KDHE for an SRF loan to support our lead service line replacement program. This loan authorizes 50% principal forgiveness for up to $74 million for our work replacing known lead service lines and complying with the final ruling of the lead and copper revisions. So with that, we need to have a CIP in place to go along with this funding that allows us to move forward. And we are requesting that this committee approve project number 281-361, an amendment of the 2025 CIP. So we set this up as a program that stretches out over 10 years, which coincides with our compliance schedule as required. If this is approved, annually we will be back in front of this committee and the governing body for project approval as we work through that. So again, I am open for questions, and that's our request today. I have in front of you the resolution and then Exhibit A, which is that CIP summary of that program.
Okay. Are there any questions? I don't know if I've been on the council too long or I'm just getting old, but this is really hard to see.
It's tiny, isn't it? Yes.
Okay.
So just to explain it a little bit, we took that $74 million estimate, which again, we know is high. It was based on our original numbers, so we don't anticipate having to spend that much money when everything is said and done. But we did err on the side of caution, and that's what we put in our application, which KDHE did approve. So we took that number and we divided it out over those 10 years. We think that we will really have an opportunity to hit hundreds of service lines with these amounts each year. So that timeline might shorten up significantly as we work through our knowns and trying to solidify now that our inventory will be submitted tomorrow to KDHE, and as we continue to work through verifying what all of those unknowns are, this will become more refined, and that's why we'll be in front of you every year as we move forward.
With that, can I get a motion? Well, I will make a motion to approve. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, it's 2-0. Okay. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if you will, allow us. Along the lines of what we just discussed, I'm going to ask Rhiannon to just brief the committee on a HUD announcement for a grant that we received, the announcement on Friday.
Sure.
Yeah, please.
I'd be happy to.
Sure, I will allow it. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, so I know that we're generally a small budgetary part of the puzzle, but Housing Services was awarded a lead hazard reduction grant from HUD last week for $4 million over the next 4 years. So that's very exciting for us. It's targeted to touch 16 disadvantaged census tracts, and then really specifically targeting homes with children under the age of 6. So we'll be working closely with utilities to figure out how we can partner our dollars with theirs to help along the way.
And we are working on a press release, but I thought that we would share that great news with this committee as we're discussing that type of service at this moment.
Okay,
Thank you.
so we don't have a plan yet because we just got the money, correct?
That's correct. Yep.
And does the HUD funding have to be in the low to moderate income
Yes.
intense areas?
Yep, there's 16 census tracts that are considered disadvantaged that it has to be focused within.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any questions? If not, is there anything else? Oh, yeah, I could go back and do that. Thank you. Councilman Banks, we kind of skipped the minutes because you were not online yet. So we could go ahead and approve those. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, raise your right hand. It's 2-0. Is there anything else? Okay. I just want to make a brief comment. I think a lot of the street department is here. If not, if this message can be relayed. I know you guys have worked really, really hard on the trees and getting them cleared up in areas and going back and picking those up that some of the contractors didn't pick up. And from me, I just want to say thank you. I know I sent a lot of emails out regarding tree debris. So I know that there's a lot of constituents out there that appreciate your continuously hard work. And I know it's going to get tough now because we're going to go from trees to the winter storm. So we do appreciate and we are seeing what you are doing. So thank you. If there's nothing else, is there any announcements? If there's nothing else, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.